We left off with simplifying by combining like terms, and that is going to help us with the next part of adding polynomials. Okay, there are a couple ways that we can do this. First off, if we look, we really don't need these parentheses when we're adding. Okay, so we can just ignore those parentheses. Pretend like they are not there. And then it just becomes as simple as combining like terms. So I've got an x squared plus 4x squared, which gives me 5x squared. I've got 2x, which has nothing else to combine with, so I just do plus 2x. And then I've got my 3 plus 5, adding my constants together, giving me 8. Okay, so that is one method of doing it. Another way is looking at it vertically. I've got my squareds. I've got the simple variable, or single variable, and then I have my constant. When I bring over this second piece, I'm going to align them just like we would if we were adding numbers. Okay, if I had 368 plus 72, okay, our 10s are lined up, our 1s are lined up, 100s are lined up. Okay, so here I would bring my 4x squared and line it up with my squared. Nothing goes in this section. You can even put a 0 there if it makes you feel better, 0x. And then I have plus my 5. And I can add down. So I have 8. I've got 2x. And I have 5x squared. Notice these two are exactly the same. Okay, you can do either way. I'll show examples doing both ways. All right, so for this next one, let's try vertical. So I've got my 4x squared plus 2x minus 3. I'm adding to it my 3x squared. So since it has x squared, I'm going to line that up with my x squared over here, plus a constant of 6. All right, so negative 3 plus 6 gives me a positive 3. 2x is not adding to anything, so I just bring that down. And then 3x squared plus 4x squared gives us 7x squared. So we end up with 7x squared plus 2x plus 3. Just for a little bit of review, this would be called a trinomial because it has 3 terms. And since the highest degree is 2, it would be a quadratic. All right, so this next one, again, let's try it with lining it up vertically. So we have 3x squared plus 2x. Notice that there's no constant in this one. In the second part, we have a negative x, and we have a positive 9. So in this first column, in our constants, there's nothing to add to that 9, so we bring it down. And it is positive. 2x minus x gives us just 1x, still positive. And then we bring along that 3x squared. This is also a trinomial and quadratic. This last one on this page, I'm going to go ahead and do it just by combining like terms. So I'm going to pretend like there's no parentheses there. So I've got a negative 2x squared, and it's not being combined with anything, so I just bring that along. All right, my 5x, over here I have a 3x. They are like terms, so I'm going to make that plus an 8x. And then lastly, I have a negative 7 plus a 7. So those two are going to cancel out, making it 0. So this one is also a quadratic because of that power of 2. But this one is a binomial because it's only got 2 terms. All right, so now that we have added, we are now going to work on subtracting polynomials. This is very similar. The only difference is that because of this negative, we cannot just drop these parentheses. We have to distribute this negative to each one. So we have 6x squared plus 3x minus 2. Just going to bring that along. Now this negative goes to this 3x squared, so it becomes negative 3x squared. Negative goes to this 5x, so it becomes a negative 5x. And then when we put that negative with that negative 8, it becomes a positive 8. And then we can combine like terms. 6x squared minus a 3x squared gives us 3x squared. 3x minus a 5x gives us negative 2x. And then a negative 2 plus 8 gives us a positive 6. We can also set this up vertically. So we have 3x squared plus 4x plus 2. But this time, remember, it is a minus a negative x plus 4. So this one, I usually prefer to do this way, simply because a lot of times people will forget the minus here. Okay, so I've got 2 minus a positive 4. So 2 minus 4 gives us negative 2. 4x minus a negative. Remember, when you subtract a negative, it becomes positive. So it's really 4x plus x, making it 5x. And then the last one just comes along because there's nothing else to combine it with. Had we done the distributing, it would look like this. 3x squared plus 4x plus 2. Negative times a negative makes a positive x. Negative times positive makes a negative 4. And then we can combine like terms to get 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. With vertical, it's hard to remember that you're subtracting and you have to switch the sign. So for this one, I do suggest just distributing and combining like terms, but it is completely up to you, whichever way feels best for you. And our very last example is our negative 5x minus 6 minus the quantity of 4x squared plus 6. So again, we have to distribute that negative in. So we have negative 5x minus 6 minus 4x squared minus 6. Okay, so remember, in standard form, you have to write it descending by degree. Okay, so even though I've got my 5x first over here, my squared is my largest degree, so that is going to be the first thing that I write, my negative 4x squared. And then I bring along that negative 5x. And the only thing really to combine here are my negative 6's, so I get negative 12. Okay, and also, okay, remember, just as a little bit of a review, since the largest degree is 2, this is a quadratic. And it has 3 terms, so it is a trinomial. All right, you do have a Pearson assignment that goes over this. It does include this part 2 along with the part 1. Both links are in the Google Classroom. Make sure that you are writing these down. And if you have questions, just email Mr. Price and myself. Email both of us. That way, whoever gets to it first can respond, and you'll get a quicker response time.